So, Joe Rogan hosted a debate with Douglas Murray, who I initially thought was a race realist in my more lefty days circa 2013, and through my awakening of leftist propaganda, I've grown very fond of him. He's a prestigious anti-leftist journalist, has a heaping pile of faggy British sass, and most importantly, throat coats commies on their misguided, malicious, backward narratives. He'll be debating Dave Smith, who's a libertarian comedian who I followed since around the same time. As things got more political, so did Dave. I'm a bigger fan of Douglas Murray, but today I'm forced to take the side of Dave Smith. This is the worst showing of Douglas Murray I have ever seen. They're debating Israel Palestine. Dave Smith can sound pretty America bad, pro-Palestine to some people, and to me as well, but it's coming from a genuine, good faith, critical anti-government perspective. Douglas Murray is one of the last great geopolitical journalists today. He travels the world, he goes to these places, he talks to these people. He'll legit call into Piers Morgan's show to add his 2 cents on the ground. However, his ego and prestige seem to have gotten the best of him. He does a Mott and Bailey argument where his harshest criticism, or the Bailey, is that Dave Smith and people like him regard themselves as experts that brazenly misinform people. The objection is that they don't regard themselves as experts. They find certain topics interesting and discuss them based on what they know. Douglas then reverts to his Mott argument, or his softer criticism, by saying it's just weird, that's all. I just think it's weird.
There's a weird way in which figures like him...
For him to say, I don't really do debates.
Yeah, I think it's weird to mainstream very fringe views constantly and not give another side. And if these people are such experts in how you see a society go weird...
But if your argument is that, like, you're saying, I claim to be an expert, but then I have, like, a parachute to get out of it by being like, hey, I'm just a comedian who's just saying this. Yeah. But I don't think I've ever, like, really claimed to be an expert. I have opinions on things.
I know, but
because I'm interested in these topics.
Yeah, I know, but isn't it weird to go around, for instance, let's get to the last year and a half. It's a bit weird to be simultaneously saying, I'm not an expert on a conflict, and talking about it everywhere.
I don't think so. Not really. I mean, I don't know. I don't think, like, I don't know. I don't see how you
Do
can't
you
have an
talk
opinion
about
on
these things?
Which things?
All these things that we're talking about.
Some of them, yeah.
Are you an expert?
I am on some, yes.
On some,
but
but
you talk
not.
about some that you're not an expert on.
You'll notice
right, so
that
what
I
should
didn't
you do?
just...
What should you do if those subjects get breached?
Well, I think that you educate yourself as much as you
Shouldn't
can.
you say I'm not an expert and then give your opinion if you're in the middle of a conversation?
I think it's, as I say, I think that it's a weird move to say, I'm not an expert on this, but I'm going to talk about it nonstop. I think that is strange.
Listen, I will certainly concede that I am weird. So I'm not disagreeing with you. It's weird that I'm as obsessed with all this stuff as I am. I mean, like, okay, I'm a weird guy. I tell jokes at nightclubs and then get obsessed with politics and monetary policy and, like, okay, fine. But I just, like, fundamentally disagree with this idea that, which I really do think is quite anti-democratic in spirit and quite, elitist, that there's an expert class. They can have opinions on all of these things. It's weird for any regular person who's just read about it.
Not my view. Not my view.
Seems like that's what you're saying.
I conceded already. I said a long time ago that I believe much of the expert class let itself and us all down very badly. And I think that happened in foreign policy in areas. Not every area, but it happened in some areas. I think it happened with COVID in many areas. But that does not mean that it's just a free-for-all.
This is my issue with how Douglas Murray is coming off rhetorically, where he'll make this strong claim, like, oh, you guys aren't experts, you call yourself experts. It's like, no, we're just talking about it on a podcast. It's kind of what the culture is. And Douglas Murray is like, well, I just think it's weird. Okay, well, I don't think it's weird. And they spent way too much time talking about this in the beginning. But let's just see how this starts. Douglas Murray is coming in hot out of the gate.
I bet you agree on a lot of things, and I bet you disagree on a lot of things. And it'd be fascinating to see your perspectives on these things. So that's why you're here together.
Okay.
And
well,
a minute and 20 seconds in.
Since the war in Israel began, and since the war in Ukraine began, you've had quite a lot of people who are very against both in different ways.
Yes.
Do you think you've had enough people on who are supportive of either war?
Ooh, just asking questions.
I don't know that word enough, if that's a good word.
Let's say enough people who are on the side of Israel instead of wild critics of Israel?
Well, I've had a few. I mean, I believe
These are pretty pointed questions.
on the side of Israel.
For sure.
Jordan is on the side of Israel.
You had Mike Baker, Coleman Hughes.
Yeah. I've had,
Coleman did it for like 20 minutes, so it wasn't why he was here.
no, I mean, none of them. And none of them is why they're here.
Nothing's going to satisfy Douglas Murray, so he's asking these questions in bad faith, looking for a certain answer, just asking questions, but we all know what he means, right?
With the guests you've
The
had.
guess, yeah, probably more tilted towards the idea that perhaps the way they've done it is barbaric.
But why do you think that is? Just out of interest.
Oh,
Just
some more questions
interested in
from
your
Curious
selected
Douglas.
guests.
Yeah, I'm just asking. I'm just asking questions.
It's not. I don't think about it that way. I just think I'd like to talk to this person.
You throw a lot of shit out there. There's some point at which I'm just raising questions is not a valid thing. You're not raising questions. You're not asking questions. You're telling people something.
That's exactly what Douglas Murray has been doing since the beginning of this conversation. So, Joe, you had these people on. Do you think it's balanced? I'm just asking. I'm just curious. I'm so curious, Joe. Do you think that you could have had better representation, Joe? Do you think you could have? I'm just asking questions. And then his problem is that his claim is that other people are doing that. This level of projection is astral. Like Douglas Murray, if you have something to say, just come out and say it. Okay, so you don't think they're historians or experts, and we shouldn't lend credence to what they're saying. So instead of having this meta conversation and talking about stuff, why don't you just bring up something they've said and debunk it? You're not doing that. You're playing a rhetorical game, and I can't respect it. If someone said something that's incorrect, say what they said that's incorrect, and say how it's correct. That seems very easy, doesn't it? But instead, we start off the first 45 minutes with this circular conversation where no one knows what his problem is. It's like, okay, so you're saying people can't talk about it. No, I'm not saying they can't talk about it. They can talk about it. You're saying they shouldn't talk about it? No, I'm not saying they shouldn't talk about it. So what are you saying? Well, let me explain it again. He's talking about something, which is what the left does all the time. Nothing increases anti-Semitism more than not being allowed to criticize the narrative of Israel. Quick editor's note, and I hate to do this, but apparently I'm including too much of the footage from this podcast, and it's getting flagged, but I really want to include the context from these conversations, so I'm gonna put up pictures. Sorry about that, but I want the video to go through. Let's continue.
Dave is doing that, very obviously. Dave's a comedian, but he's now mainly talking about Israel.
No, I don't know if I'm mainly talking about Israel.
That's
but
all I see you
I have
on the
opinions.
internet doing.
Yeah, but that's you.
Well, that
just,
might be what you've seen,
It's
but
just
I don't
you
think that's.
consuming
But that is also your shtick now, isn't it?
Well, what do you mean by that's my shtick?
Well, you're not a geopolitics guy in general, are you?
I don't even know exactly what you're asking.
I'm saying you've decided, being a comedian, you've decided now to become somebody who talks about Israel and the conflict.
I think you're incorrect. I don't think it's a decision. I just think you have long-form conversations, multiple of them. It's a huge event that's in the news, so it comes up. I don't think it's a thing. I think if you're on the outside, you'd say, oh, look, they're trying to get attention by talking about this very polarizing issue publicly. That's
but you do get attention from that. If you'd spent the last year speaking about Myanmar, you would not be on my lips.
Yeah, but
he
does talk about Yemen constantly. He talks about a lot of things that aren't in the news.
Well, I tend to talk about the conflicts that my government is directly involved in, which I think is reasonable to me. But I don't quite get, like, what's all the appeal to authority stuff? I mean, you have to be an expert? Or,
no, I think
what
authority
exactly
matters.
makes you
I think
an expert?
authority matters, and I think that if you just throw a lot of shit out there and then say, I'm not interested in the alternative views on this, and particularly when it's a counter-narrative that is wildly off. And when you get people... Look, I just feel... We should get it out straight away. I feel you've opened the door to quite a lot of people who've now got a big platform who have been throwing out counter-historical stuff of a very dangerous kind.
Wow, Douglas, that sounds pretty serious. You're probably gonna stop talking in gypsy curses right now and be a little more specific. Some really dark, dangerous stuff. Okay, surely you know what you're talking about. Surely you've watched something in depth and you have in-depth criticisms of it. You know, you can probably name the people that you're criticizing and say what they said and correct it, right?
You mean Daryl? Are you talking about Daryl?
Daryl, who's the other one?
I don't think Daryl has.
Derek.
I don't think there's anything dangerous about
what's the other
Daryl.
guy? Derek. What's his name? Cooper, is it? Which one is it?
No, that's
it's Daryl Cooper.
Daryl Cooper. Who's the other one? There was one I just checked before on the way here. Daryl Cooper, and then Daryl Cooper, Ian Carroll. Look, these guys are not historians. They're not knowledgeable about anything.
No one's calling Ian Carroll.
No, but then why listen to their views on Churchill?
Daryl is incredibly knowledgeable.
It's not.
It's just
he's not.
Yeah,
he's not. He's wildly. Several reasons. One is when he was offered to debate the current greatest living biographer of Churchill, he said, I can't, because he knows much more than me, and I admire his work and I've learned from it, but I can't possibly debate him. That's Andrew Roberts.
But you don't have to be able to debate people to have opinions.
No,
on
you
things.
don't have to debate people.
If it's not your thing.
But if you, for instance, but if you say, I've decided that Churchill is the bad guy in the World War II.
It's not what he said. It's not what he said.
Neither Carroll nor Cooper have said that.
So first of all, Douglas can't really even remember these two people's names that give him such a hair across his ass.
Derek, what's his name? Cooper, is it? Which one is it?
No, that's
Daryl
Cooper.
Daryl Cooper. Who's the other one? There was one I just checked before on the way here. Daryl Cooper, and then Daryl Cooper, Ian Carroll.
Clearly he's unfamiliar with their content, and his claim is that they said Churchill was the bad guy, which just sounds like someone on the left saying he's racist or he's transphobic. He said Churchill was the bad guy. No, he didn't. Oh, he didn't.
But if you say, I've decided that Churchill is the bad guy in the World War II.
It's not what he said. It's not what he said.
Neither Carroll nor Cooper have said that.
Did he? Do you have any examples? You don't. People who think Douglas Murray won this debate are just being fanboys that feel smart by supporting Douglas Murray. They think they're getting some residue or intellectual runoff coming from Douglas Murray down to them if they just support Murray because he's smart, because him journalist. Which, by the way, he describes himself as a tabloid journalist in this.
Oh, believe me, I write for the tabloids.
Yeah, this has always been true.
So Douglas Murray makes money writing sensationalist slop stories in tabloids. But enough of this. This was boring to me when I watched it. It's boring talking about it right now. Let's get into some of the classic hits from this episode.
Have you been to the crossing points?
No,
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been?
Well, am I not allowed to talk about it now? I've never been to. Have you ever been to Nazi Germany? Are you allowed to have feelings about them?
You can't time travel, but you can.
Right.
But you can travel.
Okay, but so what? So what's the point? Like,
No,
okay.
I find that
Lots of people have been there and agree with me, and lots of people have been there and agree with you.
Yeah, but
so I
if
don't
you're
know
going to
what
spend a year and a half talking about a place, you should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
So Dave Smith should at least do the courtesy of traveling all the way to Israel if he's going to talk about it. Do you think Douglas Murray has the courtesy of giving someone charitability in what they're saying, despite the fact that Joe and Dave have talked to this person? Let's see if Douglas Murray is capable of even extending the courtesy of charitability before asking Dave Smith to travel to Israel.
I don't think you're giving him the most charitable interpretation.
I don't need to give him the most charitable interpretation to be able to see what he's doing.
Okay, I think you're straw-manning him, I should say.
Look, anyone can look up what he's said on this show and others, what these two guys in particular have said on repeated podcasts with both of you. It's an attempt to downplay Hitler and always to do down Churchill.
I don't think you downplayed Hitler.
You're saying I've downplayed Hitler?
No, I said in conversations with you and others, this is the shtick of these guys.
Douglas Murray has never talked to these guys. Dave Smith and Joe Rogan have talked to these guys. Their opinions on them would be more accurate than Douglas Murray's because he hasn't talked to these guys behind the scenes. He doesn't even have the common courtesy to have examples of their pro-Hitler stances. I mean, a video, a quote, something. Any sort of legwork that this journalist does. But no, Dave Smith has to go to Israel to have an opinion. Meanwhile, Douglas Murray knows better than Joe Rogan and Dave Smith about these two guys that they've talked to. Now, I'd like to add that I believe the point of going to Israel would be to have like an objective take on what's going on. I want you to ask yourself this question and answer it honestly. Do you think Israel wants objective coverage of the war, or do you think they want favorable coverage of the war? Is there possibly a conflict of interest when a year ago Douglas Murray went to Israel and received the Shiny Shekel Award from Israel's president? Is that what Dave Smith is supposed to do? Go to Israel and get a little trophy because of all the sweeping he's done for the country? Is that objective journalism? This is like the Streisand effect right now. I wouldn't have known that unless Douglas Murray wasn't so pompous. In fact, Douglas Murray was shilling so hard and just trying to push his book, he was contradicting himself left and right. He couldn't keep his story straight.
Daryl is incredibly knowledgeable.
He's not.
Yeah,
he's not. He's wildly. Several reasons. One is when he was offered to debate the current greatest living biographer of Churchill, he said, I can't, because he knows much more than me.
If you're passionate about something, you should be able to debate it. Okay. Fair stance to have, as long as it's consistent.
That's a bit weird, because also then it's like the debate me bro thing. But
you just criticized Daryl for not debating.
No, it's fine.
Oh, whatever, it's just a contradiction. Let's move past it. Anyway, we can't go by what Putin says.
There's an oddity to believing what Vladimir Putin says.
No, wait, hold on, but you didn't let me finish my point.
Okay.
So don't believe what he says.
We should go by what Putin dreams and says.
He invaded because of the thing he's dreamt of since he falling down to the Soviet Union.
Do you know how he dreams?
We know a lot from what he's said and what he's done.
I actually haven't found a single coherent, reasonable person that's defending Douglas Murray. Here's all I found so far.
And you are interested. But there are a lot of people who have come along
to take advantage
partly,
of that.
I think, because they've come on this show, who have come along and they've decided, I can play this double game. On the one hand, I'm going to push really edgy and, frankly, sometimes horrific opinions. And then if you say that's wrong, they say, I'm a comedian.
But wait a minute. No,
Oh my God. Who is this based man? I'm just a comedian. I don't know. I'm a little comedian.
What do you think Aaron Cohen has to say about this?
Dave Smith sat in the Rogan chair representing everything wrong with the I'm just asking questions generation. He downplayed the October 7th massacre, suggested Israel had no right to self-defense on this level, floated libertarian non-interventionist lines as if they were meaningful in the context of slaughtered civilians. Then Murray stepped in, didn't yell, didn't posture, just stared him down and started speaking in facts. And you could feel it, the air shifted.
Well, I don't know if we watched the same video, but I wonder where his bias might be coming from.
This episode of The Aaron Cohen Show is brought to you by Merkava Coffee. This is the official coffee of The Aaron Cohen Show. When I served in the IDF, coffee wasn't just coffee, it was fuel.
The man served in the Israel Defense Forces and needed to insert that into his coffee advertisement. In response to Dave Smith saying it just became clear as the show went on that Douglas Murray came to do anything but debate me, James Fallen from Grace Lindsay says on X, "That's right, Dave Smith. He went on to talk to Joe. You were in the way. You weren't wanted. You were forced into the situation, and it was shit." Well, James, Joe Rogan said explicitly from the very beginning that he brought both of them there to share their views.
I bet you agree on a lot of things, and I bet you disagree on a lot of things, and it'd be fascinating to see your perspectives on these things. So that's why you're here together.
All of the reasonable critiques appear to be on the side of Dave Smith. I mean, Douglas admitted we couldn't trust the experts with COVID.
Ceded already. I said a long time ago that I believe much of the expert class let itself and us all down very badly. And I think that happened in foreign policy in areas, not every area, but it happened in some areas. I think it happened with COVID.
And that dealt with hard science. We have an entire medical industry transitioning kids. If we're vindicated in our skepticism of the most concrete science humanity has ever seen, you think a subjective social science like history won't be under scrutiny? What are the historians saying about Black Lives Matter? And January 6th, it's not like they're doing history surgeries on people. We have the internet now. Information is widely available. We're witnessing modern history be lied about as we're experiencing it. So now let's listen to Dave Smith's very reasonable account of how this debate went down.
You say, I'm not a historian, but I'm going to spend my time talking about history. I'm not a journalist, but I'm going to spend my time talking about this thing. I'm not an expert on this, but I'm going to spend my time talking about this thing. It's a weird move, yeah?
No.
You don't think?
No, I'm a free American. I can talk about what I like to.
About
so
what
I don't.
You
so
want.
what is the point
I've
here?
noticed you can, but
but
we
what's
all
the
can.
point?
The point is, what are you pushing? What are you watering?
What am
Why?
I pushing?
Yes.
Liberty, free markets, peace, prosperity, not getting in another stupid catastrophic war, which we're on the precipice of right now. Okay.
That doesn't mean we are on the verge of a war. I mean, you keep referring to we being in wars. There's a very big difference between a country having a military that's engaged and a country being at war. This country has not been at war for 25 years. You have not been fighting for the American homeland for 25 years.
Yes, we haven't. That's true.
Right.
We haven't had a war on our shores. We've been picking on third world countries halfway around the world.
Well, you haven't been randomly picking on them. I mean, Afghanistan, you went.
I didn't say it was random.
Yeah, right. Okay. It wasn't like you suddenly
just pause it for a
decided
second. Like, dude, it's just, this was the whole thing. Is every point is just garbage. The contradictions are wild, but there's enough. How pedantic to stop over. We've been at war. And I go, yeah, no, I'm not suggesting the homeland's been attacked. I'm saying we've been picking on these third world countries. And he goes, you haven't been randomly. I didn't say it was random. Obviously, what is this? All right, keep playing. Watch out for this next contradiction.
Yeah, Myanmar or something. We went to Afghanistan to find bin Laden and take revenge for 9/11 and stop an attack like that happening again on the American homeland. That is very different from a country being at war.
Yeah, but that's a total mischaracterization of the war in Afghanistan. It's one thing to say that might be an accurate characterization of the special operations mission in late 2001, but then we fought a 20-year regime change war against the Taliban.
Because you got dragged into the quicksand of war.
He starts the thing by objecting to me saying we've been at war and ends it by saying because you got sucked into the quicksand of war. Oh, so you just use the term you in the same way that I use the term we, and then use the term war in the same way that I use the term war. After that was your objection. He literally starts and then just completely contradicts it at the end.
Oh, I said it was a war. It's your use of we, as if you're personally like suffering this war. I mean, you're a taxpayer.
When I say we're
taxpayers,
implied,
so we pay for it. Okay, fine.
Douglas, would you go, if I went back and corrected you on every time you've used the term we to refer to your government or something like that? Like if I were to say, oh, we just imposed tariffs on China, would you point out that I didn't and it was the Trump administration?
I'm saying you take it obviously very personally, and that's your right to do so, of course. I'm just trying to make sure we're accurate here.
What do you think I'm taking personally?
The American wars.
Sure. Yeah, I think they've killed hundreds of thousands of people and cost my country $8 trillion and degraded my country very much.
And there's a very good argument to make on that. I'm still slightly bemused about this move from I'm an expert on this and I have views to I'm a comedian.
I've never claimed to be an expert on anything.
Can you just pause again?
This is the problem, Joe.
It's so funny to go, that's a great argument, and people should really have that discussion.
It's like, that's what we're here to do, I thought.
But I'm
Why
confused.
Don't you want to do it then? So what's the other side of it? Give it to me. Present the argument.
I mean, if somebody
Wait a minute,
says
you have to claim to be an expert on something to have an opinion on something?
You don't have to be. You don't have to be. But
so what's
this is
the
like
issue?
I'm not a historian, but I'm pumping out history.
But wait a minute,
I'm not an expert, but I'm talking all the time about this.
But you're not even talking about specifically on what he just said.
No, I'm saying this is my point about this. You say,
I mean, it is.
I'm not an expert.
So what's the solution?
Like, God bless Joe Rogan, because he is trying to keep it civil and be as nice as possible, but he's just like, that sure does seem like the thing you're saying doesn't at all address the very reasonable thing that he just said, like what that you even admitted was reasonable. So like, you got anything for that? And it's just anything except arguing any of the wars, anything except actually putting up a debate, grappling with anything I'm saying.
To not talk about it?
No, it's to have more experts around.
Well, the expert class hasn't done a great job.
I know.
Man. This is follow the science.
Yeah,
but you know what?
I agree with that. I just said to you, I agree with that.
Right. I know.
But
so
one
Douglas,
of the problems
during all of COVID, I will put my track record against any of the expert class on COVID. I'm glad to do that. So should I have just shut up? Should I have shut up by opposing lockdowns and opposing vaccine mandates and talking about the lab
argument
theory?
at the time. You realize
that's the entire argument that you're making. Let the experts handle this.
He's not. No, is it like it's like, and he has the nerve to say that me and Joe were like jelly. It's like, dude, you couldn't pin him down on anything. Anything he says, he won't just stand for. And look, I'm sorry. This thing to this claim, which people try to make, right? You're just a comedian and you present yourself as this expert, but then you always have this like parachute, like, oh, but I'm just a comedian. And it's just like, I don't know how many times I have to say it to him. He has to be like a drunk woman and just pretend he hasn't heard it every single time and keep saying it again.
I want this video to serve as a litmus test. Kind of like with the Kyle Rittenhouse shooting, where there was kind of a clear line in the sand where like, wait a minute, there's something weird happening here. There's a really obvious objective interpretation of the Kyle Rittenhouse shooting that seems to be underrepresented. Now, conversely, a lot of people agree that Douglas Murray was acting indignant, pompous, elitist, didn't come to debate, but there's a line being drawn in the sand here. There's a shift happening. Now that the left isn't in power, the right's acting kinda funky, and they're trying to protect certain areas of the right, and I can't be on board with it. Not ethically, not morally. It really opened my eyes to how much we cannot criticize Israel at all whatsoever. The amount of sweeping, and how he's acting like an objective journalist, but he gets an award in Israel. But then also there's popular content creators just sweeping for Douglas Murray, but not having any substantial argument. It's not going into detail. Intellectual titans like James Lindsay are just acting like petulant children defending him. There's no actual, logical, reasonable defense of Douglas Murray in this. And this is going to be a reoccurring problem. And I'm going to call it out. Have a good one.